I've spent a lot of time outdoors over the years. Camping, hiking, just getting away from everything. And most of the time it's exactly what you'd expect. Quiet, peaceful, nothing happens. But I've heard 3 camping stories from people I know that I genuinely cannot shake. 3 stories from 3 different trips, 3 different states, 3 things that don't have easy explanations. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about them. Story 1, The Stalker. This one was told to me by a friend of mine. He's not the type to exaggerate. If anything, he downplays things. He was camping alone in late March of 2023, somewhere in the mountains near Ashland, Oregon. He'd driven out there alone. No one knew exactly where he was going. He just needed to get out of the city for a few days. Things in his life had gotten complicated. Without going into too much detail, he'd been dealing with some harassment online that had bled into real life. People showing up, threatening messages, the whole thing. So he packed up and drove out to a campsite he'd used before. A creek bed, off the main trail, remote. The kind of place where your phone barely gets a signal. He set up camp around 4 in the afternoon, built a fire, ate dinner, started reading. By the time it got dark, he was pretty relaxed. First time in weeks he actually felt okay. Around 9 p.m. he got a text, unknown number. "Hey, how's the trip going?" His first thought was that it was someone he knew, a family member maybe. But something felt off because he hadn't told anyone he was going camping. Not specifically. He just said he was getting away for a few days. He texted back, "Who is this?" No response. He put the phone down, tried to ignore it, went back to the fire. About 20 minutes later, another text from the same number. "It's really nice out here tonight, isn't it?" He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he looked up, scanned the tree line. Nothing. Just dark woods and the sound of the creek. He didn't respond. He grabbed his flashlight and did a slow walk around his campsite, checked every direction, saw nothing. He went back into his tent, kept the flashlight on, kept his phone in his hand. An hour passed. No more texts. He started to calm down, told himself it was a wrong number, someone messing around. It happened. Then at around 11:15 he heard footsteps. Not animal footsteps, human footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the direction of the trail. They stopped about 10 feet from his tent. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his phone buzzed. Same number. A photo. It was his tent, taken from maybe 15 feet away, taken from exactly where the footsteps had stopped. The last text said, "Sleep well." He told me he sat in that tent until sunrise with his hand on his phone, ready to call 911 at any moment. But out there, he had maybe 1 bar of service. Maybe none. In the morning, he packed up in 10 minutes and drove straight home. He never found out who it was, and the texts never came again. But he told me something that stuck with me. He said the scariest part wasn't the photo. It was the fact that whoever was out there had been watching him for a while before they sent it, long enough to know exactly where he was sitting, long enough to wait. Story 2, The Scream. This one came from someone I actually know. We were friends back in middle school, but then his family moved and we lost touch for years. Different states, different lives. About a year ago, he ended up moving to Colorado, same state I'm in now. We reconnected through a mutual friend and met up for drinks one night. We were catching up, talking about random stuff, and he mentioned he grew up in Maine for a while after his family left. A small town called Millinocket. And he said something happened there that he still thinks about. I could tell by the way he said it that it wasn't just a story. It was something that stuck with him. So I asked him what happened. This is what he told me. He was about 14 at the time, summer of 2019. He'd only been living in Millinocket for about a year, but he'd already made friends with 3 other kids. Jake, Tyler, and Marcus. Best friends. The kind of group where you do everything together. The town was small, maybe 5,000 people. surrounded by dense forest on all sides, and these 4 kids had this spot in the woods, about half a mile from the edge of town, not on any trail, not marked on any map, just a place they'd found one day and decided to make their own. They called it the hideout. Over the course of a year or so, they'd hauled plywood out there, built a platform between 2 big trees, maybe 6 feet off the ground, strung up some tarps, brought out old camping chairs, even stashed a cooler with drinks and snacks. It was their spot, the place they'd go after school, on weekends whenever they wanted to get away. He said they'd been going out there for almost 2 years. Never had a problem, never saw anyone else. In late July, they decided to camp out there overnight. They'd talked about it before, but never actually done it. And they figured, why not? It was summer, no school. Their parents were fine with it. Small town like that, the woods felt safe, familiar. So on a Friday evening, they packed up. Sleeping bags, flashlights, some food, a few beers they'd stolen from Marcus's garage. They told their parents they'd be back the next morning. They headed out around 6. The sun was still up. Warm evening. Made it to the hideout, set everything up, started a small fire in the clearing. For the first few hours, everything was perfect. They sat around the fire, talked, joked around. Tyler brought a speaker and they played music. He was showing everyone videos on his phone while they still had service. By the time it got dark, they were comfortable, laughing, having a good time. Around 10:30, Marcus said he heard something, told everyone to shut up for a second. They went quiet, listened, nothing, just the fire crackling. Tyler laughed, said Marcus was paranoid. They went back to talking, but about 20 minutes later, Jake heard it too. He stood up and said, "Wait, listen." This time, they all heard it. Footsteps, not close, but not far either. Slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves and dead branches. My friend said his first thought was that it was a deer, but Tyler shook his head and said, "That's not a deer." And he was right. Deer don't walk like that. They move in bursts, stop, move again. These footsteps were steady, consistent, human. They turned off the music, grabbed their flashlights, pointed them toward the sound. The footsteps stopped. They waited. No one said anything, just stood there, scanning the trees with their lights. Then Marcus whispered, "There's someone out there." And that's when they heard it. A scream. Not like someone calling for help. Not like someone in pain. Just a scream. Raw, loud, piercing, high-pitched, almost like a woman or a kid. But wrong. He said there was something underneath it that didn't sound human. It came from maybe 50 yards away, close enough that it felt like whoever was screaming could see them. Jake said, "What the fuck was that?" Tyler's voice was shaking. "We need to leave, right now." They didn't argue. They didn't pack anything. They grabbed their sleeping bags and ran, flashlights bouncing everywhere, branches whipping their faces. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. Just ran until they broke through the tree line at the edge of town. They were breathing hard, shaking. None of them said much, just walked back to their houses in silence. My friend told me he didn't tell his parents what happened, just said they got bored and came home early. His parents didn't ask questions. The next morning, they met up at Jake's house, sat around for a while, not really saying much, just thinking about what happened. Finally, Marcus said what they were all thinking. "We should go back." Tyler looked at him like he was crazy. "Why the hell would we do that?" "Because we need to know," Marcus said. "It was probably just someone messing with us. Maybe some older kids. We can't just never go back." They argued about it for a while, but eventually they all agreed. They'd go back during the day, just to check. Around noon, they walked back out to the hideout. It was completely different in the daylight. Bright, warm, peaceful. Everything looked normal. Their stuff was still there. The fire had burned out. The chairs were where they'd left them. But when they walked into the clearing, Marcus stopped. He pointed up. There was a body, hanging from one of the trees, about 10 feet off the ground, rope around the neck, swaying slightly in the wind. My friend didn't go into details about what it looked like. He just said it was bad, really bad, and it had clearly been there for a while. They didn't get close. They turned around and ran, sprinted back to the nearest house and called 911. The police came, taped off the area, questioned the kids. Their parents were there. It became a whole thing. The town was in shock. What my friend told me, and this is the part that really stuck with him, is that the coroner determined the person had been dead for at least a day, maybe 2, which means the scream they heard couldn't have come from that body. It was already gone by then. The police never figured out who did it, or who the person was, or why they were out there. The 4 of them don't really talk about it anymore, at least not to other people. But my friend said he still hears that scream sometimes, in his head, late at night, when everything goes quiet. And he said the thing that bothers him most isn't the body. It's the footsteps they heard before the scream. Because whoever was walking out there that night wasn't the person hanging from the tree. Someone else was in those woods with them. And my friend said he still wonders if that person saw them, if they were watching from the trees the whole time, waiting. Story 3, Julie. This one came from someone who asked me not to use his name. I'll respect that. What I can tell you is that he's been a hiking guide for about 17 years. He knows the outdoors. He's comfortable in the woods. This isn't someone who scares easily. About 3 years ago, he went on a solo 2-day trip with his dog, a golden retriever named Julie. He'd had her for 10 years. She went on every trip with him. Everywhere he went, Julie went. The spot he chose was in the mountains of Montana. Remote, beautiful, the kind of place he'd been to dozens of times before. He set up camp in the late afternoon, tent, sleeping bag, small fire. He brought a few joints with him, nothing crazy, just something to relax with after a long day of hiking. By the time it got dark, he was settled in, fire going, Julie lying next to him. He rolled a joint, lit it, and started watching videos on his phone. Everything was perfect, peaceful. Exactly what he needed. Then Julie stood up. He looked at her and said, "What's up, girl?" She was staring toward the tree line, ears up, completely still, and then she bolted, just took off, straight into the woods. No warning, no hesitation, just gone. He jumped up and grabbed his flashlight, started yelling, "Julie! Julie!" Nothing. He ran toward the trees, still calling her name, kept running, kept yelling. And then he heard it, a bark, and then a scream. Not a human scream, a dog scream. The kind of sound a dog makes when something's really wrong. He ran toward the sound, flashlight bouncing everywhere, branches hitting his face. But when he got there, there was nothing. No Julie, no tracks, nothing. And then he heard something next to him, rustling, fast, like something running through the leaves. And then a sound he'd never heard before in his life. He told me he doesn't even know how to describe it. Not an animal, not human, something in between. Something wrong. He ran back to the tent, got inside, zipped it up. He tried to convince himself it was the weed, that it was too strong, that he was just high and paranoid. But he knew it wasn't. He wanted to go back out and look for Julie, but he was too scared. He just sat there in the tent, listening. And he kept hearing sounds, movement, things he couldn't explain. But no Julie. He stayed awake all night, just sitting there, waiting for the sun to come up. When it finally did, he went back out. He called her name, over and over. Nothing, no response, no tracks. It was like she'd just vanished. And then he found her. She was lying on the ground about 100 yards from the campsite, cut in half. He told me it was one of the worst things he's ever seen. The dog had been with him for 10 years. Every hike, every trip, she was his life. And now she was just gone. He said he couldn't leave her like that, so he dug a hole, a big one, buried her right there. He didn't cry, didn't say anything. just covered her up and walked back to the tent. He packed everything up, didn't look back, just started walking toward his car. When he got there, he noticed one of the tires was flat. He got out the spare and started changing it. And that's when he noticed something. The tire wasn't punctured, it was torn, like something had ripped it open. Not a hole, not a cut, a tear. He'd never seen anything like it. He told me he was about to finish putting the spare on when he heard it again. That sound. The same sound from the night before. The sound he heard right before Julie screamed. But this time it was daytime. Around 10 in the morning. Bright sun, no shadows. And the sound was close. He didn't look, didn't wait. Just finished tightening the last bolt, got in the car and drove. He said he's never driven that fast in his life. Didn't look in the rearview mirror. Didn't stop until he was an hour away. He hasn't been back to that spot since. And he told me he doesn't think he ever will. Because he said the thing that scares him most isn't what happened to Julie. It's the fact that whatever was out there didn't just take her. It waited. It watched him bury her. Watched him pack up. Watched him try to leave. And then it made sure he knew it was still there.